Some billionaires collect art. Others collect submarines, private islands, and problems no normal person could even afford. The more money they made, the stranger their shopping carts became. And somehow, this is only the beginning. 1. Most people dream about owning a nice house. Indian billionaire Mukesh Ambani skipped that step and built Antilia, a 27-story private home in Mumbai. It has multiple helipads, hanging gardens, a massive ballroom, a private movie theater, and enough parking for hundreds of cars. The house reportedly requires hundreds of staff members just to keep everything running. It's less of a family home and more like a luxury hotel that accidentally belongs to one family. Imagine telling your kids dinner is ready, and they need a map to find the dining room. 2. In 2013, Russian billionaire Dmitry Rybolovlev paid around $127 million for a penthouse overlooking Central Park. The apartment came with incredible views, enormous living space, and enough luxury to satisfy almost anyone. The strange part? He reportedly spent very little time there. For most people, forgetting to use a gym membership is expensive. Billionaires forget about apartments worth more than entire neighborhoods. That's the financial version of buying a yacht just to use it as a mailbox. 3. Larry Ellison, the co-founder of Oracle, didn't just buy a vacation home in Hawaii. He bought about 98% of the entire island of Lanai. Instead of choosing between beachfront property and mountain views, he simply purchased nearly everything. Resorts, roads, utilities, and thousands of acres suddenly became part of one billionaire's portfolio. Most people argue with neighbors about fence lines. Ellison's biggest neighborhood issue is deciding what to do with an entire island before breakfast. 4. Saudi Prince Al-Walid bin Talal decided regular airplanes weren't luxurious enough, so he ordered an Airbus A380 designed as a flying palace. The plans included marble floors, massive bedrooms, conference rooms, prayer spaces, and even an elevator connecting different decks. Commercial passengers complain when the Wi-Fi doesn't work. Billionaires wonder whether the crystal chandelier should go in the Sky Lounge or the private dining room. Somehow, turbulence feels less annoying when you're standing on imported marble at 40,000 feet. 5. Roman Abramovich became famous for collecting enormous yachts, but Eclipse pushed the idea into another dimension. Stretching over 500 feet long, it featured swimming pools, multiple helicopters, luxury suites, missile detection systems, and even a mini submarine. Most boat owners worry about running out of fuel before reaching the marina. Eclipse looked prepared for a James Bond movie, a diplomatic summit, and a 5-star vacation, all before lunch. Apparently, weekend boating means something very different when you're a billionaire. 6. Japanese billionaire Yusaku Maezawa bought a seat aboard SpaceX's planned lunar mission simply because he wanted to fly around the moon. Then he announced he'd invite artists to join him for inspiration. Most people celebrate success by booking a cruise through the Caribbean. Maezawa looked at Earth itself and thought, "Nice view, but I'd rather see the backside." When your bucket list literally leaves the planet, you've officially entered a different tax bracket. 7. Hedge fund billionaire Stephen Cohen purchased Pablo Picasso's Le Rêve for around $155 million after years of negotiations. The painting became one of the most expensive artworks ever privately sold. For most families, hanging a picture means deciding which nail to use. Cohen's biggest challenge was probably explaining to movers that they were transporting something worth more than dozens of luxury mansions. Suddenly, "Don't touch the walls" becomes excellent financial advice. 8. Some people buy classic cars, others collect Ferraris. Then there's billionaire Sultan Hassanal Bolkiah of Brunei, whose collection reportedly numbers in the thousands. including hundreds of Rolls-Royces and other ultra-rare vehicles. Many remain rarely driven and are stored in enormous facilities built specifically for the collection. The average person forgets where they parked at the mall. Imagine forgetting you own 3 identical Rolls-Royces because they're somewhere in warehouse number 12. 9. Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates once paid over $30 million for Leonardo da Vinci's Codex Leicester, a notebook filled with the artist's scientific observations and sketches. Most collectors frame paintings. Gates bought the actual thoughts of one of history's greatest geniuses. Instead of locking it away forever, he occasionally loaned it to museums so the public could see it. Still, imagine casually owning Leonardo's notebook. That's like buying Albert Einstein's homework and using it as your coffee table centerpiece. 10. Some billionaires buy beachfront property. Hedge fund billionaire Ken Griffin bought an entire dinosaur. In 2024, he reportedly spent around $45 million on Apex, one of the most complete Stegosaurus skeletons ever discovered. Most homeowners decorate with family photos or antique clocks. Griffin decorated with a creature that wandered Earth about 150 million years ago. When guests ask where you found that centerpiece, Jurassic period isn't the answer anyone expects to hear. 11. Oil billionaire Clive Palmer loved the Titanic story so much that he announced plans to build Titanic II, a nearly identical replica of the legendary ship. Unlike the original, this version would have modern safety systems, while recreating the luxurious style of 1912. The project grabbed headlines worldwide, although delays kept pushing it further into the future. Most people binge-watch historical documentaries. Palmer looked at one of history's most famous disasters and thought, let's build another one, but hopefully with a better ending. 12. Casino billionaire Steve Wynn once owned Picasso's masterpiece, Le Rêve. Just before completing a sale worth nearly $140 million, he accidentally put his elbow straight through the canvas while showing it to friends. Instantly, one careless movement destroyed millions of dollars in value. Most people panic after dropping a smartphone. Wynn accidentally damaged a painting worth more than an entire fleet of private jets. That's probably the world's most expensive reminder to keep your hands to yourself. 13. Elon Musk purchased Twitter for roughly $44 billion and quickly transformed not only the company, but even its identity, replacing the iconic blue bird with the simple name X. Most people buy apps by downloading them onto their phones. Musk bought the entire platform instead. It's the billionaire version of complaining about the furniture in a restaurant and deciding the easiest solution is purchasing the restaurant itself. That's one expensive way to update a logo. 14. Not every billionaire shops for luxury. Warren Buffett famously bought a modest house in Omaha back in 1958 and still lives there decades later. While fellow billionaires competed over castles, islands, and mega yachts, Buffett stuck with the same neighborhood. His investment portfolio exploded, but his address barely changed. It's almost confusing. When someone worth well over $100 billion lives more like your retired uncle than a movie villain, it completely rewrites the stereotype of billionaire spending. 15. Saudi Prince Al-Walid bin Talal reportedly commissioned one of the world's most extravagant custom aircraft interiors, complete with golden finishes, luxury lounges, and spaces designed more like a palace than an airplane. Flying first class simply wasn't enough. The plane became a mansion that happened to travel at 500 miles per hour. Meanwhile, the rest of us celebrate when we find an empty seat next to us on a 2-hour flight. Perspective really is priceless. 16. Nicolas Cage may be an actor rather than a billionaire, but his fortune once reached levels that fueled one of Hollywood's wildest shopping sprees. He bought castles, private islands, rare comic books, shrunken heads, and even a genuine Tyrannosaurus rex skull before later returning it after questions about its origin. Collecting sports cars is ordinary. Collecting dinosaur skulls is another league entirely. Somewhere along the way, shopping stopped being about owning things and became a competition with human imagination itself. 17. Indian billionaire Vijay Mallya had a weakness for speed, luxury, and anything with wings. Besides owning a Formula One team and an impressive fleet of private jets, he reportedly purchased aircraft with interiors that looked more like upscale hotels than airplanes. Leather lounges, polished wood, private bedrooms. It was all there. For most travelers, the biggest upgrade is moving from economy to business class. Mallya's version of an upgrade involved turning the entire aircraft into a flying penthouse. When your commute includes a boardroom at 40,000 feet, you've officially left reality behind. 18. Mark Cuban made one of the fastest luxury purchases ever recorded. After selling Broadcast.com to Yahoo, he reportedly spent around $40 million on a Gulfstream 5 private jet and bought it online. The deal became one of the largest e-commerce purchases in history at the time. Most people hesitate before ordering a $50 gadget without reading reviews. Cuban clicked buy on an airplane worth tens of millions. Somewhere, an online shopping cart quietly became the most expensive checkout page on Earth. 19. Jeff Bezos decided that simply exploring space wasn't ambitious enough. Through Blue Origin, he funded the recovery of the massive Apollo F-1 rocket engines from the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. These engines powered the Saturn V rockets that sent astronauts toward the moon. Most collectors display vintage cars or military memorabilia. Bezos recovered actual pieces of the space race from nearly 3 miles underwater. That's the billionaire equivalent of digging through your attic and accidentally finding a chapter of American history. 20. Billionaire James Dyson became obsessed with creating the perfect vacuum cleaner. That obsession led to thousands of prototypes before the final design reached stores. The unusual purchase came later. He reportedly bought one of Singapore's most expensive penthouses, complete with panoramic views from one of the world's tallest residential towers. It's ironic. The man who spent decades removing dust eventually bought a home so high above the city that dust probably needed permission to visit. 21. Elon Musk didn't stop at electric cars and rockets. He also bought a social media company, launched a flamethrower through one of his businesses, and sold thousands of them almost instantly. Technically marketed as not a flamethrower, it became one of the strangest billionaire-backed products ever offered to the public. Most CEOs celebrate success with commemorative pens or branded coffee mugs. Musk celebrated by selling something that looked like it belonged in an action movie. Legal departments everywhere probably needed aspirin. 22. Paul Allen, Microsoft's co-founder, assembled one of the world's greatest private collections of military aircraft, vintage vehicles, and historic artifacts. His museums showcased everything from World War II fighters to space exploration memorabilia. Unlike collectors who hide treasures behind locked gates, Allen often displayed them for the public. Still, imagine having a collection so massive that preserving aviation history becomes a weekend hobby. Some people restore old motorcycles. Allen restored entire chapters of the 20th century. 23. Billionaire Richard Branson purchased his own private Caribbean island, Necker Island, after years of searching for the perfect escape. Today, it features luxury villas, wildlife, beaches, and enough privacy that celebrities vacation there regularly. Most people dream of escaping noisy neighbors by building a taller fence. Branson solved the problem by surrounding himself with the Atlantic Ocean instead. It's hard for anyone to borrow your lawnmower when they need a boat, just to ask. 24. Michael Bloomberg spent millions preserving one of history's most valuable documents, a rare copy of the United States Constitution. Instead of disappearing into a private vault forever, it was loaned to museums so millions of people could see it. That's what makes this purchase stand out. While other billionaires chased bigger yachts and taller mansions, Bloomberg invested in a piece of American history. Of all the outrageous things billionaires have bought, sometimes the most valuable purchase isn't the flashiest. It's the one that survives for the next generation. 25. Larry Ellison has spent decades collecting Japanese art, but one purchase stood out even among billionaires. He bought a historic Japanese estate near Kyoto, complete with centuries-old architecture and meticulously designed gardens. Restoring it wasn't just expensive, it required preserving traditional craftsmanship that very few people still practice. Most homeowners argue over paint colors at the hardware store. Ellison's renovation meetings probably included conversations about 400-year-old roof tiles and handcrafted wooden beams. When your fixer-upper has survived samurai, you've entered a completely different real estate market. 26. Hedge fund billionaire Ken Griffin paid over $238 million for a Manhattan penthouse, making it one of the most expensive homes ever sold in the United States. The apartment overlooks Central Park from hundreds of feet above the city and occupies multiple floors. Most people buy a home because it's close to work or has a good school district. Griffin bought a place where the view alone probably costs more than an entire suburban neighborhood. At that level, even your windows have a luxury tax. 27. Roman Abramovich didn't just own one luxury yacht. He collected several over the years, each somehow larger and more extravagant than the last. Some featured movie theaters, swimming pools, gyms, spas, and accommodations rivaling five-star resorts. Choosing which yacht to use became its own decision. Most families debate which car to take on vacation. Billionaires debate which floating palace has the better sunset deck. That's a scheduling problem very few people lose sleep over. 28. Jeff Bezos invested hundreds of millions into building a mechanical clock designed to keep accurate time for 10,000 years. Hidden inside a Texas mountain, the giant clock is engineered to outlast civilizations, requiring almost no maintenance while marking the passage of millennia. Most people buy a wristwatch that lasts 5 years before replacing the battery. Bezos funded one that expects humanity to stick around until the year 12,000. That's either incredible optimism or the world's longest warranty. 29. Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen reportedly spent millions raising and restoring historic military aircraft, including extremely rare World War II bombers and fighters. Many required years of research, custom-built replacement parts, and teams of specialists just to make them airworthy again. Most collectors polish classic cars on weekends. Allen's hobby involved rebuilding flying machines that once changed world history. When your garage needs its own runway, you've officially taken collecting a little too seriously. 30. Bernard Arnault, chairman of LVMH, has quietly assembled one of the world's most valuable collections of contemporary art. Works by Picasso, Basquiat, Warhol, and countless others decorate both museums and corporate spaces connected to his luxury empire. Most offices hang motivational posters reminding employees to dream big. Arnault's walls casually feature paintings worth enough to buy professional sports teams. Suddenly, accidentally spilling coffee during a meeting becomes a career-ending event. 31. Richard Branson once purchased Mosquito Island in the British Virgin Islands, transforming it into another luxurious private retreat alongside his famous Necker Island. Instead of settling for one tropical paradise, he simply added another to the collection. Most travelers spend months comparing hotel prices before booking a vacation. Branson solved the problem by owning the destination itself. It's hard to complain about resort fees when, technically, you're charging them to everyone else. 32. Billionaire François Pinault has spent decades buying some of the world's finest artworks, eventually transforming historic buildings in Venice into public museums to display them. Rather than storing masterpieces behind locked doors, he turned centuries-old landmarks into giant galleries. Most people run out of wall space after buying a few paintings. Pinault ran out of museums and started creating new ones. That's what happens when your hobby accidentally becomes part of cultural history. 33. Elon Musk reportedly purchased the Lotus Esprit submarine car made famous in the James Bond film The Spy Who Loved Me. Unlike the movie version, the vehicle couldn't actually transform underwater, but Musk announced he hoped to upgrade it someday with real submarine capabilities. Most movie fans buy posters or replica props. Musk bought the actual car and immediately started wondering how to make Hollywood fiction work in real life. That's what happens when your imagination has an unlimited budget. 34. Steve Cohen paid over $90 million for Alberto Giacometti's sculpture L'Inez, one of the most recognizable works in modern art. The surreal bronze figure became another centerpiece in his remarkable collection. To most visitors, it looks like a fascinating sculpture. To movers, it's probably the most terrifying package they'll ever transport. When one wrong bump could cost more than an entire skyscraper, suddenly, wrapping something in bubble wrap feels like a very high-pressure profession. 35. Oracle co-founder Larry Ellison has long been fascinated by sailing, but he took that passion far beyond weekend races. He poured hundreds of millions into building one of the world's most advanced America's Cup racing teams. These weren't ordinary sailboats. They were carbon fiber machines packed with cutting-edge technology, capable of flying above the water on hydrofoils. Most people buy a boat to relax. Ellison spent a fortune making sure his boat moved faster than many sports cars. Nothing says casual hobby quite like turning sailing into an aerospace engineering project. 36. Russian billionaire Andrei Melnichenko commissioned Sailing Yacht A, one of the most futuristic yachts ever built. Stretching nearly 470 feet long, it features towering carbon fiber masts taller than many office buildings, and a design that looks more like a spaceship than a sailboat. Wherever it appears, crowds stop just to stare. Most sailors worry about catching enough wind. Melnichenko's biggest concern is probably finding a harbor large enough to fit something that resembles a luxury alien invasion. 37. Billionaire James Cameron may be better known as a filmmaker, but after directing Titanic, he became obsessed with deep-sea exploration. He financed advanced submarines and eventually piloted one himself to the bottom of the Mariana Trench, nearly 7 miles below the ocean's surface. Most successful directors celebrate with another mansion or sports car. Cameron celebrated by visiting one of the least accessible places on Earth. Apparently, winning Oscars wasn't adventurous enough when there was an entire planet still waiting underwater. 38. David Geffen assembled one of the world's finest private art collections, featuring masterpieces by Jackson Pollock, Willem de Kooning, Jasper Johns, and many others. Over the years, he sold several works for hundreds of millions of dollars, while continuing to collect even more. Most investors check stock prices every morning. Geffen occasionally checked whether a painting on his wall had quietly appreciated by another $50 million. That's the kind of home decor that completely changes the meaning of valuable wallpaper. 39. Casino billionaire Sheldon Adelson reportedly spent enormous sums acquiring private aircraft for business travel around the world. For him, flying commercial simply wasted too much time. The planes became flying offices, allowing meetings to continue between continents without interruption. Most executives answer emails during flights. Adelson could hold board meetings somewhere over the Pacific before landing for dinner on another continent. When time becomes more valuable than money, buying an entire airplane suddenly starts looking practical. 40. Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates reportedly invested millions acquiring one of the world's most impressive collections of rare scientific manuscripts and historical documents. Beyond Leonardo da Vinci's notebook, he has shown a deep interest in preserving scientific history for future generations. While many billionaires compete over bigger yachts, Gates collected ideas that changed civilization. It's refreshing to see someone spend outrageous money on knowledge instead of another floating palace with a movie theater and helicopter pad. 41. Fashion billionaire François Pinault transformed the historic Punta della Dogana Customs House in Venice into a spectacular contemporary art museum after purchasing and restoring the centuries-old building. Instead of replacing history with something modern, he blended both together. Most renovations involve knocking down walls to create an open kitchen. Pinault restored an iconic landmark so it could display world-famous art. That's renovation on a scale where your contractor probably needs an architecture historian standing nearby. 42. Elon Musk reportedly spent years purchasing thousands of acres in Texas to expand SpaceX's launch facilities and eventually support plans for future missions to Mars. Instead of buying land for golf courses or vacation homes, he bought space to build rockets. Most developers advertise quiet neighborhoods with walking trails. Musk's version of curb appeal includes launch towers, giant boosters, and the occasional fireball lighting up the horizon. It's probably the only neighborhood where rocket noise counts as progress. 43. Larry Page, Google's co-founder, became fascinated with flying cars and quietly invested hundreds of millions into startups trying to make them a reality. While most people laughed at the idea, Page funded engineers determined to turn science fiction into commuter transportation. The average billionaire buys faster cars. Page wanted to eliminate traffic altogether. It's a reminder that once you've solved internet search, your next logical question apparently becomes, why are we still driving on roads? 44. Jeff Bezos purchased Kourou, one of the largest sailing yachts ever built, stretching well over 400 feet in length. Despite all the modern technology available, he chose a classic sailing design inspired by traditional vessels, while surrounding it with every luxury imaginable. It even travels with a separate support yacht carrying helicopters and additional equipment. Most boat owners tow a small dinghy behind their vessel. Bezos tows another yacht. At that point, the backup boat is nicer than most luxury resorts. 45. Saudi billionaire Prince Al-Walid bin Talal reportedly owned one of the world's most luxurious Boeing 747s, transforming the iconic jumbo jet into a flying palace. The aircraft featured lavish bedrooms, elegant lounges, conference rooms, and dining areas worthy of a five-star hotel. Most passengers celebrate finding extra legroom in economy. The prince's guests could hold business meetings, enjoy gourmet meals, and relax in private suites before the plane even reached cruising altitude. Somehow, boarding Group 1 doesn't sound nearly as impressive anymore. 46. Billionaire Ronald Lauder spent around $135 million to acquire Gustav Klimt's famous painting Portrait of Adele Bloch-Bauer I. Beyond setting records, the purchase ensured the masterpiece would become the centerpiece of New York's Neue Galerie, where the public could admire it. Most people hang family portraits in their living rooms. Lauder bought one of the most recognizable paintings in the world and turned it into a museum attraction. That's one way to guarantee your new artwork gets more visitors than most tourist landmarks. 47. Indian billionaire Gautam Adani expanded far beyond ports and infrastructure by purchasing airports across India. Instead of owning one transportation hub, his companies came to operate several of the country's busiest airports. Most investors buy shares in airlines hoping passengers keep flying. Adani bought the places where those passengers actually land. It's the business equivalent of realizing that selling popcorn might be even smarter than making the movie. 48. Michael Dell quietly assembled an extraordinary collection of modern masterpieces, including works by Andy Warhol, Mark Rothko, and Roy Lichtenstein. Unlike many collectors who constantly chase publicity, Dell largely kept his collection private while supporting museums and exhibitions over the years. Most people struggled to decide where to hang one expensive painting. Dell's challenge was deciding which museum-quality masterpiece deserved wall space this month. Interior decorating becomes surprisingly complicated when every painting could headline its own exhibition. 49. George Lucas sold Star Wars to Disney for billions, then committed most of his fortune to creating the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art. Instead of simply collecting priceless artwork, he built an entire institution dedicated to storytelling through paintings, comics, photography, and film. Most successful creators buy vacation homes after a huge payday. Lucas decided to build a museum celebrating imagination itself. That's a pretty fitting sequel for the man who introduced the world to lightsabers. 50. Bernard Arnault has repeatedly purchased historic luxury brands that many people thought were past their prime. Rather than collecting exotic toys, he collected entire fashion empires, turning struggling names into global powerhouses. While other billionaires compete over yachts and islands, Arnault's shopping cart contains companies worth tens of billions of dollars. Imagine walking into a store because you like the products and leaving with ownership of the entire brand. 51. Oprah Winfrey invested millions into a sprawling estate in Montecito, California, transforming it into one of the country's most famous private residences. The property includes beautifully landscaped gardens, orchards, and enough open space to feel like its own small town. Most homeowners spend weekends pulling weeds or fixing sprinklers. Oprah's gardening projects probably require teams of specialists and equipment that looks better organized than many public parks. That's landscaping on an entirely different scale. 52. Sergey Brin reportedly invested heavily in experimental airship technology, hoping lighter-than-air aircraft could eventually become useful for transporting cargo and humanitarian supplies. While the world focused on rockets and electric cars, Brin quietly looked back to one of aviation's oldest ideas. Most wealthy investors chase whatever is fashionable. Brin decided giant airships deserved another chance. Sometimes the strangest billionaire purchase isn't something flashy. It's betting that yesterday's technology might solve tomorrow's problems. 53. Howard Hughes became legendary for spending enormous fortunes on aircraft, aviation technology, and record-breaking flights. At one point, he even purchased an entire casino in Las Vegas simply because he didn't want to leave the hotel where he was staying. Most guests complain about extending checkout by one more night. Hughes solved the inconvenience by buying the building outright. That's probably the most expensive way anyone has ever avoided packing a suitcase. 54. Egyptian billionaire Mohammed Al Fayed purchased the famous Ritz Hotel in Paris, one of the world's most iconic luxury hotels. Owning the Ritz wasn't just about real estate. It meant becoming the caretaker of a place that had hosted royalty, celebrities, artists, and world leaders for more than a century. Most travelers dream about spending one unforgettable night at the Ritz. Al Fayed simply bought the entire hotel. When the room service bill belongs to you anyway, luxury reaches a level that's almost impossible to imagine. 55. Larry Page wasn't satisfied with changing how people searched the internet. He quietly invested millions into companies trying to build flying cars that could take off vertically from almost anywhere. The idea sounded ridiculous when he started funding it, but engineers kept making progress. Most commuters dream about one less traffic light on the way to work. Page looked at rush hour and decided roads themselves were the real problem. That's one way to deal with traffic, just stop touching the ground altogether. 56. Billionaire Joe Louis reportedly built one of the world's most impressive private art collections, featuring works by Picasso, Matisse, Francis Bacon, and Lucian Freud. Many of these masterpieces remained inside his private properties rather than public museums for years. Most people decorate their homes to impress dinner guests. Louis decorated with paintings that could headline exhibitions at the Louvre. Suddenly, "Please don't lean against the wall" becomes the most valuable sentence in the house. 57. Charles Simonyi, the former Microsoft executive, paid not once but twice to travel into space aboard Russian Soyuz spacecraft. After returning safely from his first mission, he decided one trip simply wasn't enough and booked another. Most tourists return from vacation with souvenirs and photos. Simonyi came back with memories of orbiting Earth hundreds of miles above the planet. Apparently, once you've seen 16 sunrises in a single day, ordinary sightseeing loses a little excitement. 58. Billionaire François-Henri Pinault continued expanding his family's influence in luxury by acquiring legendary fashion houses and investing heavily in restoring historic buildings to showcase art collections. Instead of building flashy monuments with his name on them, he gave centuries-old architecture a second life. Most collectors eventually run out of shelf space. Pinault ran out of historic landmarks. That's a surprisingly elegant problem to have. 59. Sheldon Adelson invested billions transforming Macau into one of the world's largest entertainment destinations, building enormous casino resorts connected by shopping malls, theaters, hotels, and convention centers. These weren't simply casinos, they were entire miniature cities operating under one roof. Most developers hope people stay for the weekend. Adelson created places where visitors could spend days without ever needing to step outside. It's hard to beat that level of customer retention. 60. Jeff Bezos also funded the construction of a giant underground clock designed to tick for 10,000 years because he believed civilization should think further into the future. Engineers carved chambers deep inside a mountain so the mechanism could survive for millennia. Most people struggle to plan next year's vacation. Bezos financed something expected to outlive every smartphone, skyscraper, and probably every password you'll ever create. That's long-term thinking on an almost unbelievable scale. 61. Billionaire Carl Icahn became famous for buying huge stakes in companies, not because he wanted to admire them, but because he planned to reshape how they operated. While others purchased luxury toys, Icahn often bought influence itself. Most customers complained to the manager after bad service. Icahn solved problems by becoming one of the biggest owners in the company. It's the corporate version of buying the restaurant after receiving a disappointing meal. 62. Michael Bloomberg invested hundreds of millions into Johns Hopkins University, helping fund medical research, financial aid, and scientific innovation. Unlike purchases designed to impress neighbors, this investment quietly changed opportunities for thousands of students and researchers. Most wealthy people donate after writing a large check. Bloomberg's gifts became so significant they permanently changed one of America's leading universities. Sometimes the biggest billionaire purchase isn't something you can park in a garage. 63. Richard Branson didn't stop with islands, airlines, and space tourism. He also invested heavily in Virgin Galactic, chasing the dream of commercial space travel for private customers. For decades, it sounded like science fiction. Today, paying passengers have actually reached the edge of space. Most travel companies advertise window seats with better scenery. Branson decided Earth's atmosphere itself was limiting the view. That's certainly one way to upgrade the vacation brochure. 64. Elon Musk purchased a tiny house near SpaceX's Texas facilities after selling many of his larger properties. The move surprised people who expected ever larger mansions from one of the world's richest individuals. While rockets outside continued growing taller, his personal living space became dramatically smaller. It's an unusual contrast. The man building vehicles for Mars reportedly chose to live in a home that many suburban garages could almost fit inside. 65. Philanthropist Mackenzie Scott has given away tens of billions of dollars to universities, food banks, community organizations, and nonprofits at a speed that stunned even charity experts. Unlike highly public fundraising campaigns, many recipients learned about the gifts only after the money had already arrived. Most billionaires make headlines by buying things. Scott repeatedly made headlines by giving enormous fortunes away. That's one shopping spree where the cart kept getting lighter instead of heavier. 66. Warren Buffett made one of the most unusual purchases in business history when Berkshire Hathaway acquired companies ranging from railroads and insurance firms to candy makers, furniture stores, jewelry chains, and even battery manufacturers. Looking at the portfolio feels less like reading financial statements and more like wandering through the world's strangest shopping mall. Most investors diversify with a few stocks. Buffett diversified until almost every aisle of the American economy somehow belonged to him. 67. Here's the strangest thing about billionaire shopping sprees. After the islands, dinosaur skeletons, moon missions, submarines, flying palaces, masterpieces, and yachts longer than football fields, the one thing money still couldn't buy was satisfaction. Many kept chasing the next impossible purchase simply because there was always another record to break. Eventually, buying things stopped being about ownership and became a competition with imagination itself. And maybe that's the most ridiculous purchase of all: the endless belief that the next billion-dollar receipt will finally be enough. Money can buy almost anything, except a normal shopping list. Which billionaire made the most ridiculous purchase? Let me know in the comments, and if this blew your mind, stick around, because human wealth only gets stranger from here.